Although hardly anyone would think that the early 1900s were contemporary to today's world, it certainly seems much closer than most of the 2,500 years of history we have discussed so far. But as many things in history and especially in philosophy, it is difficult to draw a straight line dividing modern and contemporary times. As we saw previously, the Continental tradition of philosophy has its roots in German idealism, Romanticism, and their overall focus on nature and the individual, and by the end of the 19th century, authors such as Emerson, Thoreau, and Nietzsche were on the forefront of those writings. From this stemmed several different schools of thought, including phenomenology, existentialism, and critical theory. In this tutorial, we will analyze continental philosophy from the final quarter of the 19th century to the mid-20th century. Phenomenology, a clear reference to Hegel's main work, Phenomenology of Spirit, is one of the primary representatives of the Continental tradition, still influential to this day, and it was established by philosopher and mathematician Edmund Husserl. As the name suggests, this school of thought is focused on phenomena themselves, or the immediate perception of particular experiences without the framework of any preconceived metaphysical theory, a natural development of centering on the individual as its predecessors did. Intentionality is the key word here, how a consciousness directly relates to a specific phenomenon, or how we direct our attention to a particular idea, image, or concept. Only through this direct casuistic process can we really understand things in themselves. Therefore, for Husserl, any empirical methodology used to generate theories by induction of several factual data is meaningless, especially considering that he saw the mind as not reducible to mere logical and mathematical principles, an attempt he dubbed psychologism. Born in the same year as Husserl, 1859, and dying only 3 years after him in 1941, another converted Jewish philosopher and mathematician named Henry Bergson developed a very similar theory, even though both became aware of each other only late in their lives. Though not officially phenomenology, it is analogous to the ideas of Husserl from his focus on particular experiences, criticism of naturalistic and metaphysical perspectives, and even details like the subjective understanding of time, as our experience of it differs from the objective subdivision of seconds, minutes, and so on. The main difference was in style, as he was less concerned with structure and a clean system as Husserl was, focusing on a more literary writing which even invited cult-like adoration of his theory, which was no surprise considering he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1928. His most notably distinguished idea was that of multiplicity, which unifies the concepts of heterogeneity, or individual separated instances, and continuity, the wholeness and unity of things. As time can be divided into separate units, much like a color spectrum, they cannot be reduced to their individual parts, and the whole is more than the sum of its parts, as the perception of time or variations of colors are more than several fixed units altogether. Thus, multiplicity resolves this duality, and was an important concept for political theories regarding the concept of community. Martin Heidegger, famous philosopher and Nazi enthusiast, was another phenomenologist who largely agreed with his earlier contemporaries and focused even more on the individual, or the being, Sein in German, through the study of the Dasein, literally the being there, or the being while it's being, referring to the being within a direct context and its relationship with time, in his main work, Being and Time. Against ubiquitous metaphysical definitions, he criticized the technocratic nihilism of the current age and praised early Roman characterizations of being and their cultures relating to the self, a mythical adoration similar to the Nazi propaganda he endorsed. To escape nihilism and discover oneself, one must use language to explore culture from history, especially of the pre-Socratic era, specifically Western philosophy as a whole, and even poetry and architecture. Another German author was Karl Jaspers, originally a psychiatrist who became a prominent philosopher in the 1920s. He began as a neo-Kantian writer, and even as he shifted to phenomenology, he still adopted Kantian perspectives, adapting his transcendentalism in a subjective-centered perspective. But as the existentialists after him, and a frequent reason to include him in this philosophical school, he was also greatly influenced by Kierkegaard and Nietzsche, claiming that the limits of the scientific paradigm could not deal with certain topics of the mind and spirit, and only through a leap of faith, directly analogous to Kierkegaard, one can achieve plenitude and true freedom, or as he called it, existence. Though against dogmatism, he veered into theology and embraced some elements of Catholic mysticism, Buddhism, and other religions, defending a kind of monism late in life. His anti-science stance also reflected on his view of society, where he denounced technocratic governments where its people would be mere tools toward scientific or ideological projects, defending a version of libertarianism against majority democracy and totalitarian regimes. According to him, technology develops much faster than our understanding of it, and this disproportionate growth invariably generates an unstable system. Both would be akin to different legs on the same body. If one were bigger than the other, the person would invariably be unbalanced and prone to falling. And contrary to Heidegger, he wrote against fascism and the necessary focus on German education, hoping for it not to rise to power again. In the next tutorial, instead of continuing with later Continental authors, we will see how analytic philosophy developed during this very same period. So let's shift gears and get some additional perspective.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.